What if your benefit strategy is quietly training your best people to leave? Not because it's cheap, but because it feels ordinary. A lot of companies right now are dealing with a higher cost of health insurance as well. And so we're going to talk about strategies about that today. I'm Sam Reeve, CEO of CompTeam and host of the People Strategy Forum. This show is for founders, executives, and senior HR leaders that want practical ways to attract, retain, and motivate great people. We focus on real levers behind performance, such as rewards, leadership, culture, and in this case, we're going to be talking about benefits as part of the workforce experience that experts use every day. And Chris is going to take us through that journey. So, Chris Hamilton is an employee benefits practice lead at Hotchkiss Insurance. Chris brings nearly 20 years of corporate finance and insurance background, and he's focused on helping employers improve performance and profitability through smarter benefits design. Chris believes that too many employers assume that they need to compete head to head with big company benefits, when a better strategy is to design something more valuable, more distinctive, and something that employees cannot easily get elsewhere. So let's welcome Chris. Hi, Chris.
Sam, thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Sure. So Chris, I mean, I would just love to just first dive into your backstory a bit, how you got into the benefits business, helping employers select the right benefits insurance for their people. I know that you have some roots in finance. So how did that your experience in corporate finance really set you up for this role?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. If you'd have told me 20 years ago this is what I'd be doing for a living, I would have thought you were crazy. Um, I started my career in finance, working with midsize, and ultimately towards the end of my finance career was working with large regional, national, and even multinational companies. And at that point, I was helping companies fund acquisitions, mergers, and acquisitions. And it turned out as one of my clients was a large national broker who is somebody that I actually compete against now in this business. But they were a client of mine, and we were helping raise debt and equity to help them continue their acquisition strategy around the country. And this was around the time that the Affordable Care Act, aka ACA or the Obamacare, and a lot of the institutional investors were worried that the changes in the healthcare law were going to hurt their earnings, their cash flow, and ultimately their ability to pay dividends and repay debt and pay out, create a return on that investment. And so I sat through a couple of presentations with these executives, and ultimately there was an evening at dinner where the CFO was explaining how they monetize clients and how money is made inside of brokerages. And I thought to myself, wow, I understood the metrics, the economics of the business, but I didn't really understand what it meant when they're meeting with clients. And I'm not going to paint everybody with a broad brush. Not every advisor out there, they're not bad people. But when you work inside of a large national organization, the mandates are set at the executive level of the types of programming that we'll do and the types of programming that we want and how we're going to monetize. And so the way people get paid is important. And for big firms, they try to aggregate business with large national carriers because not only can they earn commission and fees directly on that client's business, but they earn massive, massive bonuses at the end of the year. And that, in my opinion, just in this conversation with these executives, I clearly saw there was a conflict of interest where they were catering to the insurance company, not what the client individually needs. And so as I thought about that, and mind you, at this point, I've got a degree in finance and economics. I have an MBA, but at that point in time, I was the person that when it came time for open enrollment, I would take my booklet and I would go to friends of mine that were in the industry to say, help me understand how this benefit stuff works. It's complicated. What's the difference between a deductible and an out of pocket? And how do I find a doctor in network? But wait, some of these costs go to deductible, but some of these costs go to out of pocket. Why doesn't it all make sense to me? And I laugh about that now because of where I'm at now. I'm actually teaching people how to use their benefits, how to design the benefits properly, how to fund the benefits properly. There's been a complete 180 for me. But what I realized very quickly, and people always ask, what's the cost? What's the root cause of rising health insurance costs? It's the cost of healthcare.
Yeah.
Insurance is a mechanism that we use to pay for healthcare. If you look at how everybody that participates in the system today, nobody wants healthcare and insurance costs to go down because that means they make less money. The entire system is designed for costs to go up and everybody pay more so that everybody makes more. And I realized that at that dinner table, I realized this system is just completely misaligned. And what got me into this business was I thought to myself, if somebody could solve for the root cause of the problem, they'd be able to create a really good business that would allow that would do something really good for their clients, which would allow those clients to do something really good for their employees, which is lower costs, better benefits, access to more care. And to me, at that point, I thought, this is a really big economic issue. It's a societal issue.
Yeah.
And if we could solve this company by company by company, we could actually create economic stimulus. Because if you think about the average American, or the median wage in America right now is what, $64,000. And if you look at a lot of mid-sized companies, that their deductibles are 3, 4, 5, maybe even $6,000 with once you factor in out of pockets. That's 10% of somebody's earnings, plus what they pay for premiums.
Yeah.
And I mean by this, if we design this properly, we can reduce their out-of-pocket costs, we can reduce their monthly premiums. This is now money that if you put $6,000 back into somebody's pocket, they're probably gonna do what? Spend it, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
so they're gonna buy cars, houses, clothing, patronize local restaurants and retailers. And this is
Mhm.
real money at scale that can be put to work inside of our economy. And I had that thought and I thought, okay, this is I for the first time, I had a passion about something that I was gonna have the opportunity to go build, and that's a long way around the barn, but that's how I got into this business.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, right now, you're right. I mean, you're just looking at healthcare in the United States. I mean, it's basically a transfer of wealth from employees and employers to the pockets of big insurance companies and medical professionals. And I think that, of course, there is a better way of doing that. And people have been working on this forever. But so, what have you discovered, Chris? What is the better way forward?
Yeah, so I think it's important to talk about what's happened really quick. So to the
Okay.
average listener, I meet with executives every day all around the country, and when I start explaining what's happened in our healthcare economy and insurance economy really over the last 20 to 30 years, 9 times out of 10 people are shocked. They're like, "Oh, I had no idea that's how this worked." So I think it's important just for the average listener to kind of break down in a summary format what's taken place, because it'll make a lot of sense to especially anybody that understands business strategy. So, if you think back 25 pre-ACA, pre-Affordable Care Act, uh, early 2000s, we had 12 to 15 different health insurance companies. Post-ACA to today, right? We're June of 2026. We've got 4 major commercial health insurance companies that offer health insurance to employers. You
Yeah.
can name them, right? This we call them the Bucas or the Cubas, Cigna, United, Blue, Aetna, right? Not much competition,
Right.
right? And I want to talk. Let's talk about why that's happened, right? The Affordable Care Act was really complex. It shook out a lot of the weaker players, the smaller players. There was consolidation that happened. So each of these big companies was able to go out and buy up other insurance companies for market share. But there's a provision in the Affordable Care Act that limits how much profit an insurance company can actually make on the premiums. It makes sense. We don't want insurance companies taking all of our premium, denying all of our claims, and making all of our premium as profit. Kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
So, but if you're a publicly traded company, which most of these are, they report to shareholders, they've got to show growth in earnings. You're looking at each other around the table. Do you want to make 15%, which is for large companies, that's all they can make is 15% of the premium in total. So if they're taking in $1 million or $1 billion of premium, they've got to spend 85 cents of those dollars, 85% on our healthcare. Do you want that number, Sam, to be 15% of $1 million or 15% of $1 trillion?
Yeah. Yeah, you want it to be higher, right? Mhm.
Right. Immediately, this initial domino that's kicked over is this spiraling up of premiums. But they've got to have some place to spend the money. So what do these insurance companies do? They vertically integrated. So they went out and bought healthcare companies that they could use to excessively bill themselves to show that they're spending the money, capture those profits in subsidiaries, and have justification to raise premiums for employers. And I'll
Mm.
give you a few examples of where insurance companies are doing that today, and some of that's gonna change, but everybody's familiar with pharmacy benefit managers. So what is a pharmacy benefit manager? What do they do? It used to be an independent organization that would go out and negotiate drug pricing at pharmacies and between manufacturers and pharmacies to make sure the insurance company and their members got a benefit, got the best price. It's done the opposite now, where these have become middlemen that capture profit in the form of excessive pricing for medications and rebates from drug manufacturers. So it's a profit center for the insurance companies. Well, they've also vertically integrated into pharmacies, and some of them own retail pharmacies that we walk into every day. But they also own specialty pharmacies. So the most expensive medications aren't being distributed at your local pharmacy. They're coming from a mail order pharmacy that the insurance company owns, and they can mark the price up and capture massive rebates on many of these medications. That's the leading driver of cost inside of a health insurance plan are these specialty drugs. But many of these insurance companies have gone even a step further to buying clinics, facilities, even owning physician practices. So you might go see a doctor that's owned by your insurance company who prescribes a drug that the insurance company prefers because they can make a bunch of money on it that's being filled at a pharmacy that the insurance company also owns. All of it's being pushed back to the insurance company at inflated costs. And at your renewal, your broker shows up and says, "Well, your claims ratio is high. The amount of money that the insurance company has spent on your claims is elevated. Therefore, we have to increase your premiums because of this."
Yeah.
Meanwhile, well, they don't break out how much money was captured in transfer pricing and profits being captured into each of these subsidiaries. And we know this to be true because when you partially self-fund a group, an employer, you get claims level detailed access to what's being purchased, what price is being purchased, and you can benchmark that. But if you're a midsize or smaller employer listening to this, you don't get that level of detail. So you just have to take as truth of gospel from the insurance company that, yep, they spent a bunch of money and yep, they're going to increase my premiums and no visibility. Now name something in a business, Sam, you're a businessman, where it might be your second or third largest expense in a given year and you don't have visibility into what you're buying, what you're paying, or the ability to determine is it a fair price.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, it's you have no control. It's hard to run a business when you can't forecast effectively, and it's
Yeah.
just yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we're seeing going on inside of the health insurance model. Something similar is happening inside of healthcare, which is pre-Affordable Care Act. If you go back to the late 90s, early 2000s, I'm just thinking about my home market here. I'm in Dallas, Fort Worth, but you could take this, and the model is the same in just about every major city in the United States. There used to be 3, 4, 5 hospital systems that would operate, and now in most markets, you have 1 to 2. Some markets, you only have 1 hospital. I was meeting with an employer yesterday in Florida, and in their city, they have 1 single hospital, and their rates continue to go up. And it's because that hospital, this is where health insurance and healthcare tie together. These hospital systems have gotten so big, the insurance companies can't afford to not have them in the network, or they lose employers. So,
Sense. Yeah.
yeah, if you think about this, the really popular hospital
Mhm.
that hospital drops out of network, all the employees are going to tell the employer, change to a different insurance company because our hospital is not in network. Well, the hospitals know this. And not only have they consolidated to create these massive hospital systems, but they've also vertically integrated. They've purchased physician practices, primary care, specialty practices, oncology, OB-GYNs, imaging facilities, surgical centers. The goal for hospitals is that no matter where you enter their hospital facility, whether through primary care or specialists, they're gonna be able to take care of you 360 degrees. Whatever you need, we can take care of you here. If once you enter the system, they'll never refer you to another hospital or another group. They wanna own the patient experience, and that allows them to do 2 things, monetize it at every step, but 2, they're that much more important to the insurance companies to not let drop out of network, and so they're actually contributing, and I'm not saying hospitals are bad. I want to make this point very clear. Hospitals are stuck between a rock and a hard place. And I may be getting a little too deep, but this is really important for people to understand, especially in this political environment where healthcare has become highly politicized. I think all of us would agree we want the same things. We want access to affordable healthcare. We want access to doctors. We want access to medications. These are important things. It's a bipartisan issue. Now, the solution is different, but anybody that's talking about single payer, Medicare for all, you need to understand Medicare and Medicaid is why commercial employers and commercial insureds are paying exponentially more every single year. Because what hospitals, if you look at some hospitals and some hospital financials are public, um, many of them are 50, 60, 70% government paid. That means 50, 60, 70% of their patients are on Medicare, Medicaid, military insurance like TRICARE, right? The government doesn't negotiate. The government dictates the pricing. If you're a nonprofit, or not for profit, you're a research institute, you take Medicare, Medicaid. And so they're forced to take these patients at a fixed price from the government. There's no negotiation. Well, there's been a lot of talk about cuts to Medicaid. Medicare only grows anywhere from flat to 1 to 3% a year. Meanwhile, operating costs of these businesses for hospitals are going up 8 to 10% a year. It doesn't take a mathematician to figure out that at some point the profitability inverts. And so if you can't negotiate with the government and they make up 50 to 70% of your payer mix or your patient mix, who can you negotiate with? It's Blue Cross, United, Cigna, Aetna, who is providing the insurance to employers. And so we're basically all, as employers and employees, paying a hidden tax levied by the government based on the way they pay. And I think that's important to understand, because if we want to flip to a completely Medicare paid system, and this isn't the topic of conversation, but I think it's important to insert it here, because what I'm telling you right now, the first switch is people say, well, we should just go to Medicare for all. That'll solve the problem. No, 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 no. It's going to make the problem way worse.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna have limits of care, and that people
Right.
say that's fear mongering. It's not.
It's not. I hear that from foreign employers all the time, and their employees complain that they have to wait six months to get in to see a doctor, and some of them in Canada get frustrated and just cross the border here and pay out of pocket just so they can get an appointment before they die.
Yeah, well, actually, I was on a show, another show like this one. A business owner told me the story of his dad who had been diagnosed with cancer in Canada, and they said it was gonna take 7 to 9 months for him to be able to start his treatment because they just didn't have either the budget or the capacity to treat him. So he came to the United States. He came into California and got treated. And miraculously, because he was able to get in time, was cured. So it's not an easy problem to solve, but I think it's important to just let people know, as I start explaining these things, it is a natural tendency for people to say, well, screw this system. Let's just go to single payer. And I think it's important. There is some validity to having maybe a larger government role or an optionality, but
Mm.
it's not going to be the solution unless there's a complete reform and overhaul of the way the government pays for care.
Well, you just took us through a journey where the government tried to fix it. The ACA plan actually created new problems, right?
Right.
So what do
Might
we? What's that?
Yeah, it might there's I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but a lot of people have an opinion that maybe that was by design.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah, I mean, we're playing with people's lives here. So hopefully that's not the case. But it wouldn't surprise me if there's some of that going on. But let's switch the conversation back to what you provide and to
Mhm.
help employers actually figure this out in a way that's going to help them as an employer be stronger and also help their employees get the care that they need.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the number one thing, I'll go back to what I said that got me into this business, is we've gotta understand what drives insurance costs. It's claims. Whether you're talking about homeowners insurance, and nationally, rates are going up on homeowners. Why? Because there's floods, fires, hurricanes, hail, catastrophic loss in different parts of the country. Insurers are paying for that. Same with autos. Right? As these cars have gotten more expensive to fix and people are having crashes, insurance rates are going up. The same exact thing is true for healthcare. As healthcare costs go up. So medications, the prices that are paid by insurance companies to go in to have babies and surgeries and see doctors, all of those things in aggregate as they accumulate are go up. We've got to raise the price of insurance. So the natural thing to look at is, are there things that can be adjusted to not only minimize the cost or reduce the cost, but in the process, can we create more access? And it turns out the answer is yes, which is so counterintuitive. If we start talking about, particularly here in our society, if you pay more for something, do you generally get better quality? And in a lot of situations, the answer is yes. But healthcare it's like it's complete. It just boggles the mind that the highest price things generally aren't the highest quality. In fact, when you look at data, if you look at the median price of something, so you take a hip replacement or a shoulder surgery or a baby birth or a gallbladder removal, generally that median price or just a click below the median price is where you're going to get the best quality providers. And
Interesting.
why is that? Is because they're typically doing the procedures at scale. So that's the hip replacement. I had one of these in January of 20. And I interviewed multiple surgeons before I did this. The gentleman that I saw could have done this in his sleep because he was doing 5 to 10 a week. And other surgeons I talked to maybe did 4 or 5 a month.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so the highly skilled, high volume providers, they're blocking OR, big blocks of OR time. They have a ton of experience. They've got this at scale. They don't necessarily charge as much, and it's just a little bit counterintuitive
Well,
to
yeah,
the
exactly.
average American.
And as a patient, who do you want to see? Do you want to go see a specialist that does these all day long, or do you want to go see somebody that does it once a month?
That's right. That's right. So the number one thing is, how do we address the cost of the care that we buy? Sam, remind me, what part of the country are you in?
Currently I'm in the Midwest.
Okay. So I'm not sure what gas prices are out there. I was thinking, I was going to make sure you weren't like in California or New York. I'm in Texas. So right now, with everything going on, gas prices are up. They're high $3. But if I was to say to you, Sam, hey, you're getting ready to go on a road trip, I'm going to sell you gas at $10 a gallon. Would you buy it from me?
Pretty expensive. That I had to be pretty desperate.
Right. Because you can probably buy it right across the street from where you're at right now for what? What is gas
Yeah,
running
or
where you're
I
at
can
right
go
now?
across the street and get it. Yeah, I can get it for $5 a gallon, right? So half the price. I mean,
5. Okay.
currently.
That's pretty high. So 5. So basically, I'm trying to charge you double.
Yep.
You can pay half, and you're pretty smart. So you're going to go pay. If I offered you $10 or $15 a gallon of gas, you're not going to buy it because you know you can get it cheaper elsewhere. The same thing is true for medications, and many people realize this. They're starting to realize this, that this pharmacy is going to charge me $15 or $50 for a medication that I can get for 5 or 25 at a different pharmacy. And that's a question that I often get is, why are drug prices so different just going across the street? Or why does one hip replacement cost $60,000, but I can get it across the street for 20? Or an MRI might cost $5,000 at one facility or 500 somewhere else. But think about the insurance experience. Anybody listening to this has insurance, right? If you've got insurance, you've got an ID card. Does that ID card tell you where to go?
No,
And does that ID card tell you what it's gonna cost?
no, it does not. That's right. So
When
so
do
this
you typically when do you typically find out what something's gonna cost? Once you've scheduled it, you've handed your card, and they maybe don't even tell you what it costs until after you've had it done. Does that
right, yeah.
resonate?
Mhm. Yep. And then you have to wonder why there's, extra charges on your bills that you didn't expect.
That's right.
So there's a lot there.
So what if you built an insurance plan that vetted the market for your employees and their family members and said, "Look, here's the best quality, here's the best price. If you go here, we can waive your costs," meaning no copay or no deductible, no out-of-pocket cost. Maybe there's a nominal copay, but if you go somewhere else, the cost increase based on lower quality or higher costs. You're gonna share more of that cost if you go to higher cost providers that are lower quality. You can that data is becoming available, and you can design those plans. So we wanna create incentives. We wanna I mentioned the health insurance system today as it is. In the traditional model, there's a lot of misalignment, inefficiency, and conflicts of interest. The goal for employers is, can we create a system that aligns everybody's interests, not just the insurance company with the employer, but the employer to the employee? Because at the end of the day, I mentioned that median income of a worker, if you're able to save them $6,000 of an out-of-pocket cost, that becomes very meaningful to them. And when you talk about retention and recruitment and retention, becomes very meaningful if they think to themselves, I'm being offered more money from another employer, but they certainly don't offer the type of access and cost mitigation to my family my current employer does. So the goal now is, let's design a custom plan that looks and feels like what employees have always gotten used to. But instead of doing something to an employee, and what I mean by that is what typically happens when insurance costs come in at renewal. So rates go up 10, 20%. The employer is now figuring out, okay, how do I get this premium increase down? Well, I'm going to increase deductibles. I'm going to increase the out of pocket. I'm going to reduce benefits. And then I also may shift some of the premium cost to the employee. So where they were paying $50 before, now they're paying 60. So they just got a 20% increase out of their out of pocket or their out of paycheck costs. Those are doing things to the employee. But when we think about doing something for the employee, which is an important distinction, is we'll keep your plan designs the same. You still have your deductibles and copays and out of pockets. But if you want to go see these doctors, you want to go to these hospitals, you want to get Mark Cuban Cost Plus. A lot of people are familiar with what Mark Cuban is doing in the pharmacy world. There are programs like that that you add to your benefits. Go access those. We'll give all that to you for free, because the insurance, which is the employer at the end of the day, the insurance company saving money, we're going to share that savings with you by reducing your out of pocket. Everybody wins. The insurance company wins, the employer wins, the employee wins. Let's create alignment of incentives so that everybody wants the same thing, which is access to care. We don't want to prevent what sense in the world does that make to prevent somebody from getting the necessary medication that can save their life? Or if it's a chronic medication, keeps them healthy.
Yeah.
Nobody wins by denying that medication. Not in the right system if it's designed properly. Let's make sure everybody has easy access to all that. Because I would tell you, somebody taking a basic medication that's going to keep them out of a hospital from whether it's having a diabetic reaction or if it's having a heart attack or a stroke, we should be giving that medication to people because you save money downstream. But let's just align this so that it works. So that's the summary of this. Now, your next question is probably going to be, because when I explain this to employers, they usually say, okay, well, how do I do that?
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, great question. If you're in the traditional system, so what we would consider a fully insured plan, so I just described how insurance companies make money. They don't give you many choices. Sign on the dotted line for your fully insured insurance plan, and you're going to get my network. You're going to get my pharmacy benefit manager. You're going to get my pharmacies. And if I own physicians, those are also going to be there. But I'm not going to tell you which ones I own. It's just going to be up to luck and randomness that your employees may walk in and see them.
Yeah.
It's a closed system. And oh, by the way, Sam, I'm not going to share any information with you because I don't want you to figure out what I'm doing to you or your employees. I'm going to hide it all behind this veil of secrecy.
Right. That's not the way to go. Right.
When I just described that out loud, as I'm saying it out loud, in what world does that make sense? Some companies are spending $1 million, $3 million, $10 million for health insurance. Like, what world did we buy? It's a division of many of these companies. If you run a $5 million a year business, a service business, and you spend $800,000 to $1 million, think about as a percentage of your revenue, that's a division of your company. But most people think of it as a division of their company. They certainly don't run it like a division of their company. So
Yeah, that's the thing is a lot of employers treat insurance as or health insurance as something that happens to them. You know, something that they have to pay just to be competitive, not aware of the options that exist in the marketplace.
right. And so now what I am teaching employers and empowering employers is how to take back that control. If you work with an advisor like me, and it doesn't have to be me, the thing that I am most encouraged about over the last 12 years, when I started doing this 12 years ago, nobody was talking about it. And everybody said I was crazy. In fact, people in the industry mocked me. Some people did, like, oh, there goes Chris, the guy that's going to fix healthcare. And the reality is the fix is out there, but employers have to know how to access it. They got to go to the right people. And the thing that's most inspiring and I'm most hopeful about is there are armies of people just like me all around this country. I collaborate with many of them that are doing this kind of work. And so the answer is to an employer that wants to take back control and get out of this rat race of just no data, no transparency, being taken advantage of, is to build their custom plan. And that's also, I call it a nonprofit health plan, because most employers are not offering health insurance for a profit. And I do that intentionally. And then I tell them, when I say that to an executive, they go, yeah, that makes total sense. We should be doing a nonprofit health plan. I say, well, great. That's called a self-funded health plan. It's a self-funded health plan. So let's strip out as much of the waste and profit out of this as we can. And let's do it properly, because you're never, unless you're Amazon or your Walmart or your Home Depot, you're not truly self-funded. There's always insurance behind there that stands behind the employer. There's a big misconception that self-funding is risky or riskier. And in fact, mathematically, if you do it properly, it's actually safer than being fully insured in a
So
traditional sense.
what size of organization is best for a self-funded plan?
Well, 10 years ago, people would say if you didn't have more than 1,000, 500 to 1,000 employees, it wouldn't make sense. We see employers at 50, even slightly below 50 employees on their plan that are doing it.
Okay.
And nationally, consistently. And we have clients in that size. I have clients that range anywhere between 50 employees that are self-funded, partially self-funded. I'll use that. Anytime I say self-funded in this context, there's an insurance company that's going to stand behind catastrophic claims. So you're never at it alone. You're never fully self-funded. So we have clients that are at 50, and probably my largest client has about 7,000 employees. I'm not really competing in the jumbo, Fortune 5. That's not my niche. But that's a good range. 50 to 1,000 employees is probably really where the majority of our business is.
Okay.
But
But tell me,
yeah,
in a self-funded plan, if you have, a few employees that develop cancer, God forbid. I mean, so how does that gonna impact your situation?
yeah. So the number in reality, in a self-funded plan, if it's designed properly, you're actually going to pay less when somebody develops cancer, and you're going to pay less if you have $1 million premature baby. Because let's just use, I'm going to use just round numbers here, okay? Somebody's paying $1 million in health insurance premium, the company, right? So
Mhm.
between the employer and the employees, the total premium is $1 million a year. And somebody goes in and develops cancer, and it's going to cost $500,000 for one person. So let's just assume they were at a run rate that was going to be about $800,000 for their claims, because there's about a 20% margin in there. Well, now all of a sudden, because there's a $500,000 claim, the insurance company is going to come back and say, well, we just spent $1.3 million on your health care. That's a 130% loss ratio, right? You just do the 1.3 divided by the million. We've now got to give you a 50% increase to kind of get you back in line. That's
Mhm.
not actually how the math should work, but that's generally what they'll show you is 130% loss ratio. We're going to give you a 40 to 50% increase to help cover, because that cancer patient probably is not resolved in that first year. It's going to be a 18,
Sure.
24, 36-month battle, right?
Mhm.
So we know that's going to be ongoing. Well, if you're in a partially self-insured plan for an employer of that size with about $1 million in premium, they might take the first $50,000 of cost on all of their members. So that member that incurs or undergoes a cancer treatment that's $500,000, the company's only going to pay $50,000 for that claim. And the insurance company that stands behind the employer, so your company, Sam, is going to pay the other $450,000. We've just shifted the risk to somebody else. Now, anybody listening to this is going to say, well, what happens at the renewal though? Are they just going to increase my rates? If I pay in a $1 million plan, if I paid them $200,000 in premium and they paid $450,000 of my claims, is my premium going to triple? Well, this goes back to designing the contract to protect the employer. And if you do it right, it makes it safer. So you can put rate caps for renewals that linger in perpetuity. So I just mentioned an employer that's got about $1 million in premium. In a self-insured plan, they're only going to pay $200,000 for stop loss insurance. So that's the insurance company that stands behind an employer. Okay. They paid $450,000 in claims to just even get that right size up. They've got to triple my premiums. That's a 300% increase just to get it roughly on par with what they've paid. Right.
Mhm.
if you there are many carriers out there that will do this and guarantee that they can't increase your premium any more than 30%.
Okay.
So you take $200,000 in premium, 30%, it's only $60,000.
Sure. But
What
then
is
they can,
$60,000?
but they
Right?
can drop you, right? They can drop you.
No, no, you get that in writing too. It's guaranteed renewable. Can't be dropped. Guaranteed renewable. So worst case scenario, 30% on $200,000 of stop loss premium is what? $60,000. $60,000 of $1,000,000 in premium or total spend is what? 6%. So I just mathematically showed you how to
Yeah.
make this cancer claimant now more cost effective. Now, the other thing is, can we manage that $500,000 cost for cancer and make that cancer claim less expensive? And the answer is yes. Because the most expensive part of cancer treatment is not the surgery to remove the tumor, it's the ongoing cancer infusions, the J-code drugs, the medications that are prescribed to members. So we just talked about pharmacy 1, it's $50 for the medicine, pharmacy 2, it's $25 for the medicine. The same thing is true for these cancer medications. And so there's different strategies to use to help reduce the cost without changing the provider that the member's going to. You don't want to change somebody's oncologist. That's really important. That's a very sensitive and intimate relationship with a provider. You don't want to disrupt that, but doesn't mean that we can't get their medications at a better price and make sure that the member's getting exactly what they need and we're paying less for it. Anybody that I talk to seems to think, yeah, that makes total common sense. If it's going to be $50,000 for this medication and you can get it for 20 or 25 and it's the exact same medication from the same maker, makes total sense. Like who wouldn't want to do that? So that just gives you a concept of where employers are going and what they're doing with their claims to help reduce the cost.
So it's really making sure that you have a proper contract design and management going forward. So it's not something that's and so there's questions I mean, a lot of employers are kind of tied to their broker, like they feel like, oh, I've had a relationship with this guy forever, and they're reluctant to kind of change or switch. But what are the questions that the employer should be asking their broker to kind of get them on the right path?
I think that's a great question. I think the first thing you've got to figure out is what type of broker that you're working with. And I'm not trying to cast stones in a glass house here, but I just want to be transparent because just like in any profession, it doesn't matter if you're talking about plumbers or if you're talking about lawyers or if you're talking about doctors, people have specialties, what their niche is, what they're passionate about, what they're good at. There are multiple types of health insurance brokers out there. There are some that are just very much specialists in the traditional market. They represent insurance companies and they will go get you quotes from those big insurance companies. We do business with the big insurance companies. But surprisingly, people ask me, are you able to do business with them as much as you talk about them? Yeah, they want volume. And some people specialize in that. But there are other people that have a niche to know how to design these customized self-funded health plans like we do. And they know what to look for. They know how to design them. They know what to request. They know what to demand for their employers. They know how to gauge an employer's risk tolerance. So you need to be asking questions around that. So if somebody wants to find somebody that can transact the type of work that I'm talking about, the questions you should ask: what's going on in the healthcare market that's driving costs up? What's going on in the health insurance market that's driving costs up? Okay. And the reason I just explained it to the employer, now they know what to look for. You need somebody that can articulate what's happening at the level I just gave you. If they're saying what I'm saying to you, that's somebody that's definitely leaning in the right direction. Now, the next question you ask, okay, now that you just explained to me what's going on, what are leading employers doing to solve that? And they should be describing customized plans that address the root cause, which is claims, healthcare claims. And that'll tell you that you're talking to somebody that really is staying abreast of what's going on in the market and what to do about it. If you talk to somebody, you'll get anybody listening to this. There's somebody listening to this right now that has gotten this response. I had people on my team that were like this. Uh, what's going on in the market? Well, it's just there's costs are going up and, it kind of is what it is. There's not a lot of choices out there. We can shop these different insurance companies against each other. Wrong answer. Wrong
Yeah.
answer. Because the solutions have been out there well over a decade, probably 15 years. In fact, there are more and more hospitals and providers that want to work around. They're wanting to work with employers that are doing what I'm talking about because they want to get rid of, they want to bypass the traditional insurance companies, and they're willing to give better prices to employers and their health insurance plans if you do it. Trust me, the hospitals and providers, physicians they're tired of insurance companies. They hate it. They've had to build massive bureaucracies internally, billing departments and appeals departments and just collections departments. It's just become this massive apparatus that it's bloat administratively. It's waste. It's creating waste in the system dealing with insurance companies. And anybody that's listening to this, if you've ever paid cash for something, gone to a doctor and said, "Hey, uh, I know with insurance, my deductible is X and my out of pocket's Y, so it's going to cost me 5 grand. If I paid you cash, what would you take for it?" "Oh, we'll give half the price or a third of the price." Sam, what that's telling me is that they value the time value of money, getting my money now, not having to fight it, and the administrative bloat is worth at least 50% off. It's pretty incredible when you think about it.
Yes. I found that myself. Yeah, it is crazy the difference. Well, this, Chris said this is, highly valuable. I know our listeners out there are just eating this up. So I know that you mentioned that you have a YouTube channel, and so where can leaders that are listening in learn more and find you?
Yeah, so I create content. I create short form content on. I never thought I'd be on TikTok, but I'm on TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, just most of the social channels. The best place to find me is going to be my website. It's Chris Hamilton, chrishamilton.com. There's case studies there. There's access to each of the social channels that I'm on, depending on what you're looking for. Long form content. It's not a podcast. It's more of a solo cast where I'll take common themes. What is a self insurance? What's a TPA? What's a PBM? How to design custom benefits. I break that down in longer form content on YouTube, but the It's Chris Hamilton website will get you to any of the type of content or information that you want to learn about. And if an employer's out there and they're just looking for a different set of opinions or eyes on the plan that they're running, I'm happy to make connections. I've got literally counterparts of mine that I collaborate with in all 50 states, including Alaska and Hawaii. So if anybody's wanting a local connection to be made, I'm happy to do that or provide advice just as a second opinion for anybody that's interested in something like that.
Great. So, for our listeners out there, Chris has helped us reframe and understand how benefits in health and welfare actually work and some of the flaws in the system and how they can be solved. So, the big idea here is that if we navigate around these issues, retention for your employees can be enhanced by providing more valuable plans that are customized to their needs. So it comes into designing plans and those contracts effectively, and a person like Chris can make that happen. So we've heard that a lot of different issues here that I'd love to dive in with you in a later time, Chris. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. I'd love to come back on if you want to continue the conversation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And for our listeners out there, if this conversation gave you a new lens, please follow the show and share this episode or visit our YouTube channel for other strategy insights. But this is very revealing on what you need to do with your benefit plan in the next renewal cycle. And so I implore you to go out there and reach out to professionals like Chris and his network. All right. Well, take care, and we'll see you next week on the People Strategy Forum. Thanks, everyone.